You've made financial decisions you deeply regret, not because you were stupid, but because nobody taught you how money actually works inside a human mind. Morgan Housel wrote The Psychology of Money not as a finance textbook, but as a mirror, and what it reflects will change how you see every dollar you've ever spent or saved. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Financial success has almost nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with behavior. You've felt this before, the moment you get a raise and somehow end up with less money than before. That's not bad luck. That's a psychological trap with a name. Everyone alive today grew up in a different financial era. Your parents' money beliefs, your first paycheck, the recession you lived through, all of it sculpted your financial psychology before you ever read a single book about money. This is where most people get it wrong. They think the rich know something they don't, but the wealthy janitor who retired a millionaire proved that knowledge was never the variable. Ronald Reed, a Vermont gas station attendant, he never earned more than minimum wage. He died with an $8 million fortune. His secret? He was patient when everyone else was impulsive. And then there was Richard Fuscone, Harvard-educated, Wall Street executive, enormous salary. He went bankrupt. The difference between these two men is pure behavioral psychology. Luck and risk are siblings. They share the same DNA. And the terrifying part? They're nearly impossible to tell apart until it's too late. Bill Gates attended one of the only high schools in the entire world with a computer in 1968. Was that skill? Was that destiny? The honest answer destroys the myth of pure meritocracy. When things go wrong financially, we say, I made bad decisions. When things go right, we say, I worked hard. This asymmetry in how we assign credit and blame is one of the most expensive biases you'll ever carry. Never idolize someone's wealth without understanding their complete risk exposure. The flashy trader posting gains might be one bad bet away from ruin. The boring index fund investor might be one decade away from freedom. Now here's something nobody tells you about wealth. It's not what you see. Real wealth is the cars not purchased, the dinners not ordered, the upgrades not taken. Wealth is financial options you've preserved, invisible, silent, powerful. Here's the painful irony. The things we buy to look wealthy are the exact things that destroy the ability to become wealthy. We spend money we don't have to impress people we don't like for status that doesn't last. Saving money is not about restraint. It's not about deprivation. It's about creating freedom, the ability to say no to bad jobs, no to bad deals, no to pressure. That is the actual return on savings. You don't need a specific reason to save money. The best reason to save is, I don't know what will happen next, and I want the freedom to respond on my terms. And this is where everything changes. Compounding. Albert Einstein allegedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. Warren Buffett's real secret is not intelligence, it's time. He started investing at age 11 and never stopped. Buffett's net worth at 65 was around $60 billion. At 95, it was over $130 billion. The majority of his wealth was built after most people retire. That is not investment genius. That is the brutal mathematics of compounding time. But compounding only works if you stay in the game, and staying in the game requires something most financial advice ignores: the ability to survive the downturn emotionally, not just mathematically. Here's the question that should terrify every investor. If you can't handle watching your portfolio drop 30% without panic selling, what's your real risk tolerance? Not the number on a form, the real one. The most dangerous financial move isn't investing in the wrong stock. It's being forced to sell the right investment at exactly the wrong time because you didn't have enough cash buffer to survive the storm. Morgan Housel calls this being financially unbreakable. Not maximizing returns, not beating the market, simply ensuring you can stay in the game long enough for compounding to do its work. Now, we need to talk about tails, not coin tails, the tail events that drive almost everything in finance, the rare, extreme outcomes that nobody predicts, but that account for the majority of all returns. Amazon's best 10 days between 1997 and 2019 account for the majority of all its returns. Remove those 10 days, and you get a mediocre stock. The entire secret of long-term investing is surviving long enough to catch the tail events. Venture capital funds know this. They expect most of their investments to fail, and they're comfortable with that because one success, one tail event can return the entire fund 10 times over. This has a massive implication for how you live your life. You're allowed to be wrong most of the time, as long as you're spectacularly right when it matters. Perfectionism is not a survival strategy. Freedom. That is the highest return money can buy. Not the yacht, not the mansion, the ability to wake up and decide how you will spend your time on your terms. That feeling is the true dividend of wealth. Study after study on happiness shows the same result. Autonomy over your time is the single largest predictor of life satisfaction. More than income, more than status, more than possessions. Time sovereignty is the ultimate asset. But here's the trap modern life has built. We trade time for money, then use that money to compensate for the time we lost by buying conveniences, experiences, and escape. We are running on a treadmill designed to feel like progress. Wealth is relative, not to others, to your own expectations. The person who expects nothing and has little can be richer in spirit than the millionaire who expected everything and got most of it. Enough is a decision, not a number. Imagine this. You're at a casino and you're winning. Someone offers you the chance to bet everything, double or nothing. Most people eventually say yes. This is called enough blindness, and it has destroyed more fortunes than any market crash. Rajat Gupta had $100 million. He wanted $1 billion. He committed insider trading and went to prison. The goalpost kept moving, and it destroyed everything. Enough is the word that could have saved him. Bernie Madoff ran the most successful investment fund on Wall Street legitimately before he began his fraud. He didn't need the money. He needed the feeling of being needed. The psychology of enough is not about numbers. It's about identity. The hardest financial skill isn't picking stocks. It isn't calculating compound interest. It's getting the goalposts to stop moving. The ability to define enough and mean it is perhaps the rarest financial skill on earth. Here's something the financial media will never tell you. Saving money is the gap between your income and your ego. It has nothing to do with salary, everything to do with self-control and self-awareness. Wealth is built in the silence between earning and spending. That silence, that pause, is where every fortune in history was actually created, not in the transaction, in the non-transaction. Now let's talk about the most misunderstood concept in personal finance: reasonable versus rational. A financially rational decision is not always the right decision. A financially reasonable decision, one you can actually live with, almost always is. Keeping money in cash during a bull market is mathematically irrational, but if cash lets you sleep at night, if it prevents you from panic selling during a crash, it is psychologically rational, and psychology wins every time. The financial plan you can stick to for 30 years beats the theoretically perfect plan you abandon after 18 months. Consistency is a return. Patience is a strategy. Boredom is sometimes the highest performing investment behavior. But here's where behavioral finance reveals its darkest secret. We change. The 25-year-old who chose aggressive growth investments becomes the 50-year-old who can't sleep through a 10% market dip. We fail to account for the evolution of our own emotional tolerance. Housel calls this the end of history illusion. You can clearly see how much you've changed in the past decade, but you believe you won't change in the next. This single cognitive bias is responsible for catastrophic financial regret. Don't lock future you into decisions that only make sense to present you. Leave room for change. Build financial flexibility. The most dangerous financial plan is the one with no exit ramp. Now we arrive at one of the most profound ideas in the entire book. Every price in finance has a hidden fee that nobody lists. The fee for stock market returns is volatility, anxiety, and self-doubt. If you're not willing to pay it, you won't collect the return. The investor who cashes out at every market scare isn't saving money. They're paying a different kind of fee, the fee of missed returns. Every strategy has a price. The question is which price you're willing to pay. Imagine this. You're in a restaurant. The menu has only two options: high returns with terrifying volatility or mediocre returns with total calm. Most people order the calm meal, then spend years envying the person across the table eating the storm. The news is not your financial advisor. The financial media is engineered to generate anxiety because anxiety drives clicks. Calm, long-term optimism doesn't sell ads. Fear does. Here's a profound paradox. The more financial news you consume, the worse your financial decisions tend to become. This isn't opinion, it's a documented behavioral phenomenon. More information triggers more action triggers more errors. Pessimism sounds smart, optimism sounds naive, but throughout all recorded financial history, the long arc bet on human progress, on capitalism, on compounding has been correct every single time. Bad news arrives in an instant. Good news compounds slowly over decades. This asymmetry in how progress feels versus how disaster feels is why pessimists always sound smarter, even when they're consistently wrong. The world will get worse between now and the day you retire. There will be crashes, crises, wars, and recessions. The question is not whether these will happen. They will. The question is whether you'll still be in the market when they're over. The history of every major market crash shows this. Every single time, the market recovered. Every single time. Not because of luck, but because of the relentless engine of human creativity and adaptation. Now let's enter the most psychologically treacherous territory in personal finance. Other people's financial stories. You are comparing your financial life to a highlight reel you cannot fully see, and it is destroying you. The neighbor who drives the Porsche might be 3 months from bankruptcy. The colleague who takes luxury vacations might be carrying $40,000 in credit card debt. You are not behind. You are just not seeing the full picture. Stop playing games you were never invited to join. The wealth race has no finish line and no rule book. The only game worth playing is the one you design yourself, on your own terms, with your own definition of enough. And this leads us to one of the most powerful concepts in the book: room for error. Not pessimism, not fear, mathematical humility. The acknowledgement that no forecast is perfect, and that survival requires building buffers into every plan. The margin of safety concept from engineering was stolen by finance for a reason. The bridge that holds 10 tons is designed to hold 30. Not because the engineer expects disaster, but because they respect the unpredictability of reality. The investor who keeps a 2-year cash buffer is not leaving money on the table. They are buying the ability to not make panicked decisions during the exact moments when panicked decisions are most expensive. Here's the real problem with financial advice. It assumes one size fits all. But you don't have the same financial goals, timeline, or risk capacity as anyone else on Earth. Generic advice is dangerous. Applied blindly, it becomes financial poison. The 30-year-old in Silicon Valley and the 58-year-old in rural Kentucky are not playing the same financial game. They should not have the same financial strategy. What works for one can destroy the other. The danger isn't just bad advice, it's good advice meant for someone else. When a hedge fund manager tells you volatility is temporary, they're right, for them. They have 20-year time horizons and ironclad liquidity. Do you? Know which game you are playing, and never take advice from someone playing a different game, even if they've won it spectacularly. Their victory is not your blueprint. We live in a world obsessed with prediction. Financial forecasts, market predictions, economic outlooks. And yet, no one, not one person in history, has consistently and accurately predicted the future of markets. Not one. The 2008 financial crisis, the 2020 pandemic collapse, the 2022 crypto crash, every single one was a surprise to the experts. The world is not a complicated machine. It is a fundamentally unpredictable system. Plan accordingly. This doesn't mean planning is useless. It means the plan itself is not the point. The point is the act of planning, developing the mental flexibility, the scenario awareness, the adaptive capacity to respond when reality diverges from the map. Housel makes a distinction that will reframe your entire relationship with uncertainty. History tells us what happened. It cannot tell us what will happen next. The past is a map of a terrain that no longer exists. And this is perhaps the most liberating idea in the book. You don't need to predict the future to build wealth. You just need to survive it. Wealth is built not by those who called the turn, but by those who outlasted the turn. Now, here's something uncomfortable about how the world appears. We overestimate the role of decisions and underestimate the role of narrative. The story we tell about our financial life determines whether we repeat our mistakes or transcend them. When markets crash, the story becomes capitalism is broken. When markets soar, the story becomes I'm a genius. Both stories are mostly fiction, and both are economically expensive to believe. The dangerous investor is not the ignorant one, it's the overconfident one, the one who has had enough success to believe their pattern recognition is foresight. The market's greatest skill is humbling the most confident players. Here is the most quietly devastating sentence Morgan Housel writes. No one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. Read that again. The audience you are performing for does not exist. We spend money to signal status, but status is a feeling created in our own minds. The house is bought to impress the neighbor, who is too busy trying to impress you. It is a treadmill of mutual performance with no winners. Genuine wealth is private. The truly wealthy rarely look it, and the loudest displays of wealth are often the loudest distress signals of psychological insecurity wearing a luxury mask. Now let's talk about what Housel calls the seduction of pessimism. Great pessimists are celebrated as brave truth-tellers. Great optimists are dismissed as naive. But the financial record of long-term optimists is, without exception, superior. The asymmetry is this. When a pessimist is right, it feels vindicating. When they're wrong, nobody remembers. When an optimist is wrong, they look foolish. When they're right, which historically is most of the time, nobody gives them credit. Here's the thing about the long game. It rewards the boring. The investor who bought an index fund in 2000 and never touched it through dot-com crashes, 2008, COVID, is, right now, spectacularly wealthy. Boredom was the strategy. The problem with long-term investing is not complexity. It's the fact that it requires doing nothing for extended periods of time, while everything around you screams at you to do something. Inaction is the hardest skill to master. Housel's core message for everyday investors: stop trying to be brilliant. Just try to be consistent. Brilliance is unreliable. Consistency compounds. The ordinary investor who never panics outperforms the genius who does. Now we arrive at the book's most personal insight. You need to understand your own financial identity before you can build an effective financial strategy. Who are you? What do you actually value? What does money mean to you beneath the surface answer? For some people, money means security. For others, freedom. For others, it means status, or love, or power. None of these is wrong, but each creates a completely different relationship with risk, saving, and spending. Know yours. If money means security to you, you will save obsessively, but struggle to spend on experiences. If money means freedom, you'll resist all commitments. If money means status, you'll overspend on visibility. Your financial identity is both your compass and your trap. The goal of financial therapy, and yes, that's now a real field, is not to change your financial behavior. It's to uncover the emotional architecture beneath it. Change the belief system, and the behavior shifts automatically. Morgan Housel's most quietly radical claim: doing well with money requires not needing external validation. The person who needs no audience to confirm their financial decisions is the freest person in any economy. We are in the final third of the book's wisdom now, and here, Housel pivots to something most financial books ignore entirely: the role of luck in building wealth and the moral weight of acknowledging it. If you were born in the United States, speak English, and had any form of education, you started the financial game on third base, not because you cheated, but because the lottery of birth gave you an enormous head start over billions of others. This is not meant to generate guilt. It's meant to generate perspective, gratitude for what was given, humility about what was earned, and generosity toward those who started at the starting line while you started at the finish. The most destructive financial emotion is not fear, it's envy. Fear makes you cautious. Envy makes you reckless. Envy of someone richer than you has funded more bad decisions than any other emotion in financial history. Charlie Munger said, "Envy is the only deadly sin that doesn't feel good even for a moment. Every other vice carries a temporary pleasure. Envy is pure poison. It consumes you and deposits nothing." Housel offers a powerful antidote: comparison within your own timeline. Compare yourself to who you were 5 years ago, not to who someone else is today. This single mindset shift has the power to end decades of financial self-destruction. Here's a question you've never been asked in a financial planning meeting: what is your wealth actually for? Not the surface answer, the deep one. What is the version of your life that money is trying to enable, and are you actually building toward it? Most people spend their working lives building financial security for a retirement that will look nothing like what they imagined, because they built the financial plan without building the life plan. Money without purpose is a very expensive form of emptiness. The richest people Morgan Housel knows are not the ones with the largest accounts. They are the ones who have built lives where they would never want to retire, because they have designed work that feels like purpose, not obligation. And here we arrive at the final, deepest truth in the book, the one that changes everything. Wealth is not a destination. It is a way of navigating, a set of psychological tools and emotional disciplines that either compound your freedom or slowly erode it. Every financial decision you make carries a price tag beyond the transaction. The anxiety you absorb, the time you trade, the relationships you stress, the freedom you defer. The full cost of money is never on the receipt. The psychology of money ultimately asks you to do something radical in a culture obsessed with optimization. It asks you to optimize for peace, not maximum returns, not perfect efficiency, but the quiet, discernible satisfaction of a financial life that actually fits who you are. There is a version of your financial life that is not a war, not a race, not a performance. It is a quiet compounding of good decisions, patiently made, consistently kept. That version is available to you, but only if you stop looking sideways. The greatest financial move you can make today is not a stock pick, not a crypto call, not a real estate deal. It is the decision to clearly define what enough looks like for you, and then ruthlessly protect that definition from the noise of the world. The book ends with a reminder that will follow you for years. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is the highest dividend that money can pay. Everything else is just math. You started this experience thinking about money. You will end it thinking about your life. That is what the psychology of money does. It rewires the relationship between what you earn and who you become. The most important financial investment you will ever make is in your own psychological relationship with money, not the portfolio, not the real estate, the mind that manages all of it. Invest there first. So here's your question. What does enough look like for you? Not your parents' enough, not your neighbors' enough, yours. Answer that, write it down, protect it, and build toward it. And you will have done more for your financial future than any market prediction ever could.